having a criminal record, from employment all the way to voting rights. The school to prison pipeline is a social phenomenon where students become formally involved with the criminal justice system as a result of school politics that use law enforcement rather than school discipline as a way to address behavioral problems. Long-standing systematic health, and social inequities have put many people today from racial have put many people from racial and ethnic minority groups at risk of getting sick and dying from COVID-19 today. Social determinants of health, such as poverty and healthcare access, affecting these groups are interrelated and influence a wider range of health and quality of life outcomes and risks. SROs waste millions of dollars while there are countless amounts of resources schools could buy, which would be useful and impactful towards students' education. In fact, approximately 23 million taxpayer dollars were spent to supplement local district funding for SROs in North Carolina between 2013 and 2017. Money directed towards SROs should be directed towards enrichment programs that would actually keep kids out of trouble and offer a safe environment to experience personal growth. Enrichment programs would also provide mentorship, improve attendance, improve graduation rates, and further reduce poverty. Money can go somewhere else. The money spent on SROs could be used for enhancing educational opportunities, creating a supportive community with the counselors and social workers that can nurture growth of students and prevent the type of behavior used to justify the presence of SROs in the first place. View this in a perspective that is distant than the ones commonly established. SROs take away opportunities to implement something that is effective. In accordance to IPS-DC.org, one SRO can cost up to $97,000. School can use that money for real school resources, mental health workers, and restorative justice practitioners, to name a few. SROs seem to harm students rather than protect them. Students face a danger in the presence of student resource officers. Police brutality is an issue with these officers. In Alabama, for instance, a federal judge said Birmingham school officers use unconstitutionally excessive force when they sprayed students who were not resisting arrest or posing a threat to others with a mix of pepper spray and tear gas at school. In one of those instances, an officer sprayed a pregnant student who was already restrained with handcuffs. In Kansas City, the ACLU, in fact, filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of the family of a 7-year-old boy who was handcuffed by a school resource officer for disrupting his elementary school. The boy was crying loudly in response to a bullying incident. SROs are not properly trained to work at schools. SROs are not effective at de-escalating conflict. SROs act more immaturely and violently than students may be acting. They don't have the ability to break up fights and other altercations without using their weapons or excessive force. Only 12 states require specialized training for officers who work in schools, according to a 2015 study by the American Institute for Research. Police use pepper spray in November to break up a fight. We would assume that someone working at school with minors would not have the need to do such an unreasonable action. Even kids have broken up fights without violence, so what's the difference about these officers? Contrary to what one may believe, SRs are not the most effective at preventing death and violence on site. School resource officer Scott Peterson was criticized for not entering Major Stoneman Douglas High School in February 2018 to confront a gunman who killed 17 students and staff members.
Yes, that is time. Thank you.
All right. I'm ready when you are. All right. Good morning, Judge. My name is Chanel. My partner Dylan and I get the following case to negate the resolution that schools should remove school resource officers. Judge, the winner of this debate round must be the team that fully examines the benefits of keeping the school resource officers outweighs the benefits of not having them to provide safety and support to students, school staff, and communities in schools. We define the following: school resource officers as law enforcement officers with sworn authority deployed by police or agency in a community-oriented assignment to work in collaborations with schools, according to National.org. Our first contention is that school resource officers both directly and indirectly save the lives of students and staff. The SROs enforce safety regulations and provide protection within the school. They also prevent outside threats from ever infiltrating the premises. In fact, an occasion of this has actually happened. According to a report by Emily Shapiro of ABC News, an Illinois school resource police officer stopped an armed teenager at a high school Wednesday morning. According to the local police chief, who applauded the officer of saving, quote-unquote, countless lives. This occurred just 2 years ago, May 2018, in the city of Chicago. An example which shows the significance SROs have in an educational environment. A more common example that depicts their significance has been reported on a regular school day, when a school resource officer named Blaine Gaskell's quick engagement with a potential school shooter has saved the lives of many. According to a report by Karmal Hassan and Sahid Mohan, Gaskell was hailed as a hero and did exactly what the SROs are trained to do. According to CNN, Gaskell's is one of many stories that keep the students safe. His actions not only resulted in a normal school day, but lives still here. In school where SROs are present, school violence has been averted 58.8% of the time. According to a study published in Community-Oriented Policing Services, a branch of the Department of Justice, the warrant/impact is safety. School safety officers are essential to the school building like all others. There is a reason why they are under school administration. This is what separates them from regular street police officers. It is who they are under command. Let us remember why the idea became popularized in schools. Getting rid of them is too big of a risk, no matter the reward. Without our youth, the security and survival of our nation is at stake. Our second contention is that school resource officers are an effective deterrent to bullying. From kindergarten to 12th grade, bullying is common among students and within school walls. Sometimes it is verbal or other times it is physical. What can easily be agreed upon by all people is that bullying has no place in this world, especially in an educational environment. School resource officers also serve as mentors and peacekeepers in events of bullying and also discourage it from happening anymore. Student resource officers are reported to cut down on bullying by a third, according to Amelia Harper of the Education Drive. The same article contains details of one of the NJEA Leaders Program explaining how to best use school resource officers or school security officers as a part of disciplinary method to reduce bullying and divert offenders from suspension and direct involvement with law enforcement agencies. The presence of school resource officers also deters aggressive behaviors. The officers are specifically trained to break up any hostilities among students. Those same officers are the ones preventing not to bully because of the long-term effects. The second warrant/impact is community. It is important to be there for the students. That is exactly who these student resource officers are here for. The well-being of students should be both physically and mentally. Building relationships between officers and students help in the short term and long term. On the topic of bullying, it is good to know that officers are standing up for you and for others, teaching right from wrong. Oftentimes, these school resource officers teach lessons that cannot be learned in classrooms, especially with officers who have worked for a school for an extended period of time. Just judge. The value of student resource officers is irreplaceable. They are a godsend to school administration and the first line of defense. Think of what may happen while these brave and dedicated officers. Be sure to not make it a reality and vote con.
You guys ready?
Sorry, we asked each other questions, right, for this part?
Yeah.
Yeah, crossfire, 3 minutes. Clock will start now.
So I would like to add, so in your speech you mentioned how these SROs are supposed to build community and act kind of as a deterrent against bullying, which is something very good. But I don't understand how these people are supposed to act as a deterrent or prevent bullying when they're the bullies themselves. As I mentioned in my speech, there was a 7-year-old boy crying in response to a bullying incident, and instead of offering him like help, they handcuffed him. And don't you think instead of handle these situations, we should have counselors instead? Because that's something we're lacking right now in our system.
Okay, but you gotta realize that not everybody is comfortable with counselors. Sometimes people aren't comfortable with speaking to them, especially because they know what counselors will do, like go to their parents and other stuff. But if you think about it, if some people can have a relationship with an SRO, and don't you think about the thing that he did with the little boy? Don't you think that's what he was trained to do? And it didn't really affect them that bad of a way.
You would think that if you were being bullied and somebody handcuffed you, it wouldn't affect you?
Where was he bringing the child though? How was he supposed to know he was getting bullied? Did he say that?
But no matter, he could have been throwing a tantrum, but your first reaction should be to kidnap a 7-year-old boy. It's a grown man or woman that we're talking about. Grown man in this case. How is a grown man supposed to handcuff a 7-year-old? That makes absolutely no sense.
But what did he do after? What did the police officer do after?
It says that he was restrained. And then he was, I don't know. That's not my business to find out. The point is that he was handcuffed. Like, what's the point of that? Why harm?
But you don't know the full story. Though, so. Anyways,
I don't need to know the rest of the story. The point of the story is that he was crying because he was getting bullied, and the officer's first response was to handcuff him. He didn't have a weapon. He wasn't doing anything else. Why is this happening? And this is not it. I could go on and on with these examples. And
all right, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Since you believe we should remove SROs, what's the alternative? What do you feel is better, and apparently, than having an SRO?
There are two solutions. Well, there are multiple solutions actually. One of the solutions would be that once we remove SROs, we could use this money towards enrichment programs, which would further decrease violence in schools. Second, we could have patrol officers nearby the school, not inside, because there's no reason why law enforcement should be implemented in the educational system. And third,
what's going to happen inside though?
If they need help, they could go in. That's why they're nearby. For example, in the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas case, it wasn't a SRO that helped calm down the situation. In fact, the SRO was outside of the school when 17 people got killed. What happened was that the teachers and students dialed the police department and they went to help, not the other way around.
Wow. All right. I'm just want to know, are you aware of the differences between a regular officer and an SRO?
Yes, I am.
All right. You have a question for me?
What was the point of that question?
The question was just to show you that SROs, they're already putting in the school for a different type of reason than a regular patrol officer. A regular patrol officer could arrest a student.
I understand the original.
McIntosh and Diaz, that is time. Thank you.
May I finish my sentence?
No, you're already 20 seconds over.
No problem.
Hi, Tess. Could I get 20 seconds of prep? I'm just looking
who's
for
speaking?
Jaden Rocha.
Jaden, of course. Thank you.
I just need to find this evidence. Okay. I'm ready, Tess.
All right, thank you.
And tell the person in the back when I said hi.
Time starts now.
I'll begin in 5, 4. I'll be just an off-time roadmap. I'll be responding to their points. Okay. All right. So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's start off with my opponent's first point about saving lives. Saving lives is awesome. Woohoo! We'll give the SROs a pat on the back. But was it really them, Judge? Was it really them, Tess? They're going to have to come up here in the con rebuttal and show that it was an SRO that indeed stopped a terrorist attack from occurring. Moving on. The solution to saving lives. We say remove SROs, but we're not removing the existence of police officers, right? We're keeping patrol officers around the school to respond to incidents such as school shootings, and which would prevent violent, brutal attacks, brutal confrontations like Rocio mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. Look, this is going to reduce the violence towards students. This is going to decrease the trauma. In fact, Michelle Morton, research coordinator and policy counsel for the ACLU of Florida, said a school district could just increase patrol around the school to make sure that police are close by if something happens on campus, but not integrate them into school. Don't integrate them into schools, however, have patrol officers circulating around the schools. That's what a research coordinator said. And also, they talk about how there's violence. There's a decreased tick in violence. Well, Judge, Tess, there's no viable evidence. There's no exact proof of decrease in violence. According to Congressional Research Service, it states that the research that is available draws conflicting conclusions about whether SRO programs are effective at reducing violence. There's conflicting evidence, so therefore their argument does not count because it's conflicting. Also, they go on to mention how SROs are good and we need them. They're the best option. However, that best option is not proven with the SRO because one, the U.S. Secret Service released a report in early November it was a study targeting school violence tests, and guess what it found out? That there are more adults involved than SRO officers at intervening with gun violence incidents. That they're of no use. Tess, if they can't do their job, I'm sorry, they have to hit the curve and leave. Okay, let's move on to their second contention. Let's talk about bullying, right? They talk to you about deterrence of bullying, Tess. We need to solve bullying. But guess what? That is not happening. How can I actually reduce bullying? How can the blind lead the blind? both will fall in the ditch. I mean, you can't be sick and helping the sick. I mean, it's impossible because one, they're sowing discord, they're sowing violence, they're sowing terror. That's something that's bad, and it has negative effects. Turn their arguments because one, the SROs have an impact because of those violence tests. SROs impact academics. I can't focus if there's an officer literally body slamming anyone or whoever that comes to them according to which is proven. The Texas paper showed that when middle or high school hired more public students tests were more police officers tests, there was an increase in graduation dropout rate tests. We don't want a world where students are dropping out because one, SROs are uh, causing violence and causing discord. Two, they don't do anything. I mean, what are they doing? Body slamming students? I mean, what in the world is that? Tess, it's absolutely ridiculous. We don't want that. We tell you that there's an investment. There's $23 million going into allocated to SRO officers that can go into a guidance counselor. One, because I have 1 second. Can I finish my sentence?
Finish your sentence.
Tess, I have a guidance counselor, and you probably work in a school, Tess. There's one guidance counselor for 100 students. That's absolutely ridiculous. Don't do it, Tess. We can't have Ocon. Alright.
I'd like 30 seconds, please.
Absolutely, Mr. Brown. Thank you.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good. 4 minutes, right? My time begins now. Judge, you have heard both sides, and I still firmly believe that we win this argument. I'm going to begin on going on opposition's points and then going back over to our points. To begin, they mentioned how SROs create student to prison pipeline, but in the same breath, the first speaker exactly said they uphold the student to prison pipeline, but in the same breath describe it as a phenomenon. I haven't seen any examples where a student arrested in school has ended up prison. Onto the going up when they were explaining their first point. I don't see the connection. First of all, I don't know I'm not sure if school politics is even exist. It's insulting to say that there's politics in school when the main idea of it is to serve the children who attend. He also mentioned a point about COVID-19, but I'm unsure of how this relates to student resource officers in our school. They say that SROs take money from them, but what wasn't given is here's the budget for the school. How much is it? Is there like a trend of which SROs are getting money from the teachers, or is it been the same, or are both getting more? I only get one side and not the other. How is the connection able to be made for you, Judge? They also said how one SRO is costing a school $97,000. But according to who? It could be 80 or 50. He said that SRO is mentioning the SRO who allowed 17 lives taken, which is a terrible occurrence, and while he deserves to be fired, it makes no sense to get rid of the profession because of him. You do not get rid of the profession of medicine when one doctor mistakenly kills someone. A doctor who kills intentionally, he loses his medical license and is sent to jail. The same should be happening for these SROs, not getting rid of the entire profession. in a whole. And they also say how they also, in response to my partner's question, they asked which asked a solution. They said that they use patrol officers near the system, but it's like they're still there. They're just getting rid of those inside of officers inside for officers who are outside that can still easily go back in. What exactly is changing? Not much, honestly. And on top of that, patrol officers and school resource officers, different name, still same type of authority. So are you really? As for the blind leading blind, it's not at all. It's not that at all, and actually a horrible analogy. A horrible analogy. We've already given the stat of 1/3 bullying has been cut, and I would also like to mention how the National Association for Student Resource Officers train over 2,000 officers. 2,000 officers on the topics of behavior, education, and mental well-being. You cannot, as I said before, answering, you cannot remove an entire profession. You get rid of those who cannot do their job right, and you get someone who gets the job done correctly, and make sure to ensure the protection of the students, the teachers, the administration, and the counselors, aka what they were made for. We urge you to vote con. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Tess, can I get a 10-second prep time,
Absolutely. Thank you.
please? Thank you. All right, I'm ready. All right, Dylan. Let's see. Let's start. I'm gonna start time. I'm gonna show my face too. All right, so I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so you talk about saving lives, Dylan. I understand saving lives is important, but was that due to an SRO officer or a backup officer?
A backup officer, if they're calling them, it means that they're offering the assistance because this situation is more out of hand. Like they're usually just one or two people, and you would need to do whatever it takes. Plus, the SRO is making that call, meaning that they acknowledge and have already assessed that this will take more people than just him or whoever he, her, it is with.
May I ask a follow-up?
No, I'd like to answer I'd like to ask a question now. As I already mentioned in question during my rebuttal speech, your partner said that one SRO totals cost the state or government, I don't
North
know which,
Carolina.
$97,000. Where exactly did that come from?
It wasn't $97,000. It took actually $23 million test that was invested. $23 million. Yeah, $23 million was invested into the SRO.
And then after that, your partner said one SRO equals 97.
Oh, right. What Rocio was saying is that one SRO officer costs $90,000. That $90,000 could be used for something else, like school counselors.
But where is it? Where did this come from?
I'll give you the source later. I'm not gonna invest my time looking at sources. It came from a viable source, Dylan. Now you said it comes from. Now the response comes from a backup officer. I mean, me, Tess, Rocio, we can all call 911, can we?
Yes.
So necessarily that doesn't make a difference. That's what we're saying.
No, it is a difference. A coworker asking his coworker for help is not the same as us regular citizens asking for help by calling 911. He's asking for assistance. We're asking for help from them.
We could give you that point. We could give you that point. However, what about the percentage of adults SROs intervening? I mean, there are less SROs intervening in violent crimes. There are less SROs intervening in violent crimes. Dylan, you may respond.
You mentioned that how first of all they're all adults. But SRO.
I mean, they are all adults, but you should be if you're hired to be an SRO officer, do the job. I'm not here to get no SRO officer is called to be and lay down and get sleep.
Jaden, you're gonna continue now.
You may sure, Dylan. But I was asking you a question because you asked me a question.
I was answering your question.
You weren't.
Continuing on that, you said SRO. If those teachers are there, it's usually them who have already acknowledged, who have already found the question, who have already found the problem before. They are all moving around, so it's impossible. So it's impossible to like.
That's a little bit of an excuse,
every
Dylan.
corner of every corner of the school at every
Time.
time.
That's time, gentlemen. Thank you.
Can I make a response, Tess? Oh.
We go on to summaries? Yeah? Okay. I'll start in a second. In 3, 2, 1. My partner and I have told you how SROs contribute to the school to prison pipeline, where students of color and disabilities are disproportionately affected, involving them in the country's flawed justice system at an alarming rate. Not only are kids being put in handcuffs, but we're spending money on officers when we could be investing in enrichment programs and counseling, which we currently lack, opening many doors to the unprivileged and preventing youth from continuing on a cycle of poverty and crime. Would you rather have your child be given the tools to navigate or be harmed by one of these so-called officers? Most significantly, SROs don't seem to be doing their jobs, but rather beating and abusing students who would have ideally benefit from a strong, caring presence. Sadly, it's clearly this is not the case. People still have died in the presence of SROs. So how is it that incapable adults are being put to work in a place where children are supposed to feel safe when one of the biggest threats is the SRO themselves? I would like to go back to some points that Dylan made. He gave this analogy with the doctors. Doctors are needed, right? They make a mistake and we train them. However, an SRO, there's so many alternatives we could have. Investing more in counseling would get, like, because you said something about bullying, how to reduce bullying. But if we have more counselors in schools, these people suffering from bullying will go to somebody that's actually equipped to deal with mental health issues and other like struggles that the student may be dealing with. So that analogy doesn't really make sense because you can't replace doctors, but there's so many more alternatives to this, like the patrol officers near the schools, which would actually which won't actually interfere unless a teacher or staff actually calls for a real emergency, like a shooter or something that they may have heard of, not a kid crying. Because why would anybody call for that? In addition to that, to the COVID-19, I would just like to clarify that what I'm saying is that these policies and these unreasonable measures taken affect minorities the most. So as we know now, it like contributes to a cycle of poverty and such. And as we know now, like for example in the COVID-19, like those communities, like minorities and such, they are the ones that are suffering worse from this, whether they lost their job or are getting sick the most. So it kind of connects how all of these things, up from you were a child, will affect you deeply in the future, like being expelled and being out of school and such. Because actually, schools with SRO presence have a lower graduation rate than those with. And also the training that you mentioned is only mandatory in 12 states. So what's happening to the other 38? Like, there's still these major issues going on, and there doesn't seem like anything is being done about it, to be honest. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Oh, and for these and many other reasons, we urge you, Judge, to vote pro. That's all.
May I have like 30 seconds, please?
You did good. So yes. Also, there's another evidence in the debate thing. There's no exact like if we were to implement national training, right? The money, like there's no it's too expensive.
Don't mention that at all. Just don't mention it.
Yeah, okay. And there's conflicting.
And the link, you can put it in the chat. Or you want me to put it?
What?
Have it ready?
Oh yeah, put it in the chat.
I'll put it once it starts.
Because you see, it says it here. Even a conservative estimate of the cost of placing an SRO in every school across the country shows that this proposal might be too expensive and to be feasible. It's too expensive to implement. If he goes on and continue in that argument, in that path, then I'll bring that up.
Whatever.
Okay.
I'm gonna put the. Oh crap! I'm gonna put the link.
Okay.
I'm not filled up. Oh, to start off, I'm gonna put the link.
All right.
Okay. Chanel, do you want the evidence, the sources,
Or
the evidence that Dylan called for?
yes, please.
All
And
right.
I sent it to the chat.
All right. Wait, what topic was that on? Speaking of what, the evidence supports what you was. What was you saying that supports?
Oh, basic.
Dylan didn't really seem to believe that it cost that much. I know it's very surprising, so we attached the evidence of where we got that information from.
Cause that much what?
7 day per SRO.
I'm not taking prep time to look at that.
Okay, but we sent it, so it's there, and if anybody bothers to
Yes,
check
I
it
see.
out, it's there. Just by looking at the .org, you could tell that it's very reliable.
All right. Miss, how long is the speech?
You have 3 minutes.
All right. So I'm gonna start.
Okay.
Judge, I strongly urge you to vote con. Our opposing team wants to remove SROs out the building but keep them outside. I don't find the difference in that. My opponent, Jaden, states that we didn't give no statistics to show how the violence is decreased, but according to my first contention, I said school violence has been averted 58.8%. Moving on though, my opponent Jaden also said he can't focus when a police officer is body slamming kids that came across them. Can we be realistic though and talk about, does that really happen all the time? We need to keep these officers to be on the safe side. Why are we playing a game and taking these chances? Yes, we are aware of some of the bads that have been going on, but at the end of the day, they are our protection. My opponent, Rosia, I don't know if I pronounced the name right, said to keep them outside and let them run in when something happens. Why are we waiting for something to happen? It makes no sense. It's ridiculous to even take these risks. It is who they are under command. Let us remember why the idea even became popularized in schools. Getting rid of them is too big of a risk that no matter the reward. The officers are specifically trained to break up any hostilities among students. Those officers are this is what the school already allowed, so why try and remove them now? After so long, people want to remove them. I believe chaos will happen in the school. Kids already take advantage of the teachers, so with no SROs, you think they're going to turn angels because they're having more guidance counselors? Let's come to reality now, please. Judge, the value of students' resource officers is irreplaceable, literally irreplaceable. Nothing can help keep the environment as safe as them. Teachers, more counselors, metal detectors. Come on now, Judge. We want to save lives mentally, physically, and realistically. Jaden speaks about calling 911. If SROs are already on the spot, then why are we waiting for police to come? Mind you, it's regular patrol officers who are extremely more dangerous compared to SROs. Rosia states doctors are needed, but after Columbine High School student and Virginia Tech student, so are SROs. Jumping back to Rosia again, there is no correlation to the COVID-19 points. She mentioned the economy as to why we are talking about SROs. My opponent stated there are only 12 states training. Where's the source? Which ones? Judge, please vote con and hear us out. Please vote con so that we can not cause more issues and so that we can make a change.
Okay. I'll ask the question first. And
Yeah,
then,
3 minutes for Crossfire.
yep, I'm going to start time right now. Are you ready?
Oh, too late. Oh well. Ask.
Okay.
Oh.
Sure. So, Chanel, we're saying, again, there's conflicting evidence with the reduction of violence. We're not saying there's nothing wrong with a decreased rate of violence, but it's conflicting, according to a congressional report. You did not respond clearly. And we're removing SROs because they're not doing the job.
Okay, but what's the difference if you have them outside? They're just going to run to the building when something already happened inside?
The difference is that it's not going to... The difference is that... Rosia, you want to answer what the difference will be?
You could go on with it.
The difference means that... The difference, Tess, it means that there will be less violence, there will be a less inclination of distraction.
How are you so sure?
Because one, psychological trauma.
It's just common sense.
I mean, yeah.
Your answer is common sense? Seriously?
Listen to me, I'm not done explaining myself. It's common sense because a teacher's not gonna call a 911 because a student is throwing like who does that? And that's the point with SROs. They see such a minor infraction or like an incident, like normal child behavior, and they go slamming these kids
and hovering and coming
out
out.
between a patrol officer, teacher, or staff's like sees real danger and they'll actually act up on it. And since they're close, it might as well. We do not want to mix up these students with law enforcement at such a young age. It's just unreasonable. And
Well-
also, I just want to point out, you said that the COVID-19 is it's it doesn't make sense. I don't think you really understand, but it's these socioeconomic factors that really affect smaller communities.
How does that have anything to do with
Because there's school to prison pipeline.
And think about it. Students of color are the ones that are most exposed with law enforcement. They get expelled. They don't graduate. They're less likely to graduate. So they're gonna go back to poverty. They live in these marginalized communities, and they're the ones that have to suffer when something goes wrong. For
Okay, since
example,
we have a minute left, so let's just keep on. Let's just turn the topic.
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
Where is this now? So now you say you want to remove SROs and keep in place keep patrol officers.
So-
Is there any type of protocol they're gonna be going on?
So first off, I don't say it. It's the research coordinator that says it. Don't integrate the students because is there violence happening?
I thought you were answering my question.
Is there brutality happening, Dylan?
I'm well aware. It's
You're well
that's why I
aware.
said during
So
my-
the answer is
I
yes.
said that's
Tess,
that's
the
why
answer is
during my
yes.
rebuttal, you get rid of. That's why I said during my rebuttal, you get rid of that. You get rid of that unresponsible person and replace him with someone who's far more qualified.
Yeah,
Exactly.
far more qualified. Those are the patrol officers, Dylan. Those are
Exactly.
those are those that are far more qualified. They're far more qualified to handle situations.
It's not under the authority of the school as the definition that
Okay,
we gave.
so-
Patrol officers actually come from the police department from who knows where and barely getting any time.
So what's happening in 2019?
It's still gonna be SROs.
What's happening in 2019?
That's not what SROs are.
What's happening in 2019? Can you answer the question? Tess, can you answer the question? Oh.
Just threw the year out at me.
We're a stickler for time, people. We're learning. All right. So, collect yourselves. We need both of you have, over a minute and a half each of prep time before final focus.
How many minutes
You need
does
that
the
time.
pro side have?
Sorry, Mr. Rocha, what's that?
How many minutes does the pro side have?
You have 3 minutes, 26 seconds.
We're gonna take all of it, and I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. I'll call you when I'm done, Rusio. All right. Yeah. Um. There's 7 seconds left. I'll wait until it rings out. Okay, I'll begin, and I'll be going over my points and their points, and sort of bringing it down to why we win tests.
Thank you, Mr. Rocha. Go ahead.
Okay, so okay, so let's start in 3, 2, 1. First off, Tess, there's no response to the evidence, the congressional reporting that shows that there are conflicting evidence of SROs deterring violence. Therefore, they do not win on this evidence because it's conflicting, which means that there's no exact definitive answer whether or not as to whether or not SROs actually decrease violence. Now let's move on. They mention about bullying. You can turn their whole argument against them because bullying and the SROs being hostile and brutal towards students, confrontations are becoming brutal. Rocio tells you about a pregnant woman being body slammed. I mean, it's outrageous, Judge. It has effects on students. Dylan and Chanel have failed to respond to these points. They just left it around and just didn't want to respond to it. Just kick it to the curb. Don't worry about it. We tell you that the Texas paper shows that when there is more SROs present, that there's an increased rate in dropout rates. That is going to affect the economy. That is going to affect society. There are more adults intervening than are more. Moreover, there are more adults intervening than our patrol SRO officers, which means they cannot do the job. They cannot do their job. Dylan concedes to the point that having patrols officers around the school but not inside the school, actually means that they're more qualified. Look, Judge. Look, Tess. These officers are not meant to just sit back and relax and get paid $90,000 and do nothing. You have to do your job. You're called to do your job and do it righteously. Also, we should invest, which brings back into our point, investing into counselors. There's one counselor for every 800 students in Los Angeles. There's one counselor in my school for 100 students. That's beyond ridiculous, Judge. It would be forward to support Dylan's idea. It would be horrendous. Also, like the solution, we don't say it, Judge. Jaden Rocha does not say it. Rocio Diaz does not say it. But it's Michelle Morton, a research coordinator and policy counsel for the ACLU, says that let's have patrol officers near the schools, but let's not integrate them into the schools. Dylan concedes to that.
Thank you, Mr. Rocha. Closing thoughts from.
How much time do I have?
Sir. Mr. Brown, you have 1 minute 33 seconds.
Can you run it off?
Absolutely. that is time.
Judge, are you ready? Opposition, are you ready?
Yes, Dylan.
Chanel, are you ready?
Yeah.
My 2 minutes begin now. Judge, we still firmly believe that we win this debate. Removing student resource officers cannot happen. We have seen too many times where SROs are not in place and it had fatal consequences. From the Columbine shooting in 1999, to the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007, to the Sandy Hook School in 2012. Have them in place, have them there to protect and protect what's inside and from outside elements coming in. Keep those who does it right. Get rid of who doesn't, and make sure it never repeats. The Department of Justice already proved that student resource officers are more than capable of doing their job. Illinois and Maryland can also say the same with the two examples we gave of a student resource officer correctly doing his job in a sufficient amount of time. But they continue to say our evidence is faulty. However, as I said, ours has already been verified by both state and country. My opposition gives a futile response in trying to turn our argument a bully. They assume that I agree with him on patrol officers. But why would I want to make anyone wait? Why would a teacher wait a crucial 10 seconds to a minute for a patrol officer to arrive on scene from outside or wherever they are just to treat kids like they are on the street? A reminder that what's so different and special about school resource officers, is that they're under administration of the school. They listen to them. They listen to the principal, the assistant principal, and everyone there. They will not be from the New York Police Department or wherever they are, as in comparison to patrol officers. As I said before, you do not abolish a profession because an individual cannot do it right. You get rid of them and replace them. And I'd like to remind you, Judge, that their solutions are proposed in comparison to us, where we have already seen results that are not conclusive and have already been verified on city, state, and country levels that prove that they are doing their job right. You do not break what's not working. You do not fix what's not working. And we urge you to vote con.
Okay. Now I have the hard part. How you guys all feeling? Good?
Okay?
Yeah, I'm feeling okay.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna just start with just some like cosmetic feedback, and what I mean by that is just some like forms and functions